Times people that haven't been here before, they walk in and the first phrase you hear is, holy shit.
Right.
And then the other thing you hear is, oh my God, I love the way it smells in here.
All right, I think we're live. This is the very first episode of the Motorhood. The inaugural, if it's not going to be a yearly thing, but this is it.
This is it. Can you believe it's happening?
How did I wind up here, and how did you wind up here? That's what a lot of people are going to wonder. Seriously, it's a story. First of all, this is the Gearbox. We are at Unique Classic Cars in Mankato, Minnesota, and if you look behind us, you will see what we're all about. And that's the cars.
Exactly.
Right, classic cars and unique cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I met Jeremy, the owner, it's been close to 25 years ago.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It has been close to 25 years ago. And how we got from there to here is a long story. We'll get into that as this podcast progresses, but I want to concentrate first and foremost on how you got here. Right? That's what everybody wants to know. And I'm going to start with this. First of all, have you always been fascinated with cars?
I was, I grew up with hearing stories from my dad. My dad was a parts manager at a GM dealership right out of high school, and back in '66. And I'd hear stories about cars. Everybody always assumed that I was like motorhead, grease monkey guy in high school, and I really wasn't. I mean, I liked cars. I was more the guy that, I knew almost to the minute when the next weekly car magazine was coming out, and primarily the Cars for Sale magazines.
Right.
I was religious about that, and I loved it, and I looked forward to it. So I was always flipping through magazines, looking at cars. But in high school, I didn't have anything like that, or what have you. I just had a Pontiac version of a Chevy Cavalier was my car, and
right.
Nothing crazy. So
initially, it was brought on by your father, then.
Kind of, yeah. I grew up hearing those stories, and
Sure.
I always appreciated things. Even back then, I always appreciated history. You know? So even the old stories and the old cars was always at that point a mild interest.
What was your first job in the car business?
First car business job I had was at a new car dealership here in Mankato, Minnesota, and I was. I had applied for the sales position actually, and I grew up a farm kid, so I was, just by that you have to learn how to fix stuff and be kind of somewhat mechanical and things like this, working on machinery, whatever. And anyways, I went and applied, and they called me back, and they said, well, we got good news, bad news. Bad news is we can't get you into sales until at least 6 months from now. But would you consider working in our service department? We know you're mechanical, and yes, you're young, but you're mechanical. And I'm like, well, what's it pay? And at the time I'll never forget this. At the time it was 50 cents an hour more than I was making. So I'm like, when do I start? Let's go.
You literally started in the service department.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I started, and it was, cleaning drains, sweeping floors, doing oil changes, entry level stuff. My toolbox would have fit inside most of the other real technicians' toolboxes.
Right.
But it was a starting point, and that's how I got in. So I worked in the shop for 6 months, and as I worked there, they'd give me a little bit more responsibility, not a lot, but a little more as far as things they trusted me with to work on or things like that.
Right.
Diagnosing electrical problems, whatever.
Right. Exactly. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, how long was it? Did you go right into sales following that 6 months in service?
Yeah, it was literally at the company Christmas party right at the end of the year. They said that they came to me and said that if you're still interested in going to sales, we got a spot for you. And January 1 or 3rd or whatever it was, started sales, and kind of the rest is history.
How long were you selling before you became unique and you had your own business? How many years did you sell?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's a big jump. So started in sales. First month I sucked. It was bad. I think I sold 3 cars the first month. I'm like, ugh, But then second month, third month, and so on, I found out that I kind of had a knack for it and was pretty good at it. And then within a year or two after that, I became sales manager, and then or I became assistant sales manager. Then sales managers kind of worked up the ranks over the years. So I did that at that new car dealership for, gosh, I think approximately 12, 13-ish years, somewhere right in there. And then in 2000 and oh my gosh, that's terrible.
4?
Was it 5 or 6? I forget.
6. It was 6.
2006. Thank you.
Because I remember
it's 25 now. Yeah, 2025.
Right.
So I know we're in our 19th year of business. So yeah, July of 2006.
Where was your first lot?
The first lot was on the south side of Mankato, south end of town, kind of down by the college on a corner lot. An old brick building that we at the time I leased 4,000 square feet of that building, and I remember talking to the guy, telling him maybe I could put up black curtains to make it look fuller because I didn't think we'd be able to make it look good or have enough cars. The day we opened, we had 7 cars on the lot. 5 of them were mine personally, because by that point I had collected a few, and I was selling them for 2 reasons. A, it was inventory. B, that's where my money was.
Right.
And that was it. I mean, I took a second mortgage on my house that didn't add up to much. I mean, I went in grossly undercapitalized. If you ran that by Dave Ramsey or any other business guy, they'd be like, yeah, you should definitely not do that. But I didn't have a choice. Failure wasn't an option, and we just jumped in.
It's funny that you bring that up because being in the business that I was in, I was radio. Let's just narrow it down.
Yep.
For almost 30 years, there is one trait that I have found in the guys that successfully take businesses from the ground up. Not guys who have inherited, right?
Oh, sure.
And the one trait that you all have is you never stop, and you're all in or you're all out.
Correct.
That is the honest-to-God truth.
Yeah, the second you try to straddle the fence, especially in a situation. I mean, like I said, I didn't have any money to speak of. I mean, nothing.
Right.
No angel investors or any of that kind of
Sure.
stuff. In fact, I got laughed out of 3 or 4 banks. They're like, "You want to open a what?
Right.
Where?
Right.
You want to open a classic car dealership in Mankato, Minnesota?" Nobody could. Trust me, nobody was seeing the vision, put it that way.
So you actually went to banks?
Oh, yeah, I got laughed out of 3 or 4 of them.
No kidding?
Yeah, so I was like, this, yeah. So it was...
So starting there in 2006, because I remember that, it was just prior to the sale of the company that I was working for. That's why that stands out.
Sure.
And we were working together. We had done some things. We had some roll-ins at a local bar on Madison Avenue that you were a part of, and we highlighted a few of your vehicles on my show in the afternoon. I was doing classic rock at that time, right? And from there, in 2006, your next stop was just outside town, on Victory Drive, right?
Yeah, it was on Victory Drive. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you expanded. Your showroom got a little bit bigger.
Yeah, the total building it was all one big chunk that had been added onto over the years, long before we were ever there. And we started with the 4,000 square feet, and then we added we took over another about 5,000 square feet of the building, and that was our first service department that we had. And as we kept growing, we kind of kept overtaking the building, and ultimately had the entire 15,000 square feet. Back by the time 2012, 2013 came around, we had taken over the whole property, and the other people that were in the building had moved on or whatever. So as they left, we kept overtaking the building, and then ultimately purchased the entire property. Yeah.
When you started the business, I'm going to digress just a bit here.
Mm-hmm.
Who was your very first hire? I mean, at what point do you be like, Jeremy, I'm going to need some help?
First person I hired is probably a few weeks in was a salesperson.
Sure.
They had been in the new car business, and he was kind of tired of that angle and wanted to give the classic cars a try. So that was the first guy we hired. Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And how many employees did you have at that first stop?
The most employees we had, kind of before we moved into this current facility, we were, I want to say 10 or 12, something like that.
Right.
Between the detailers and the technicians and some infrastructure, office, things like that.
Right. As you were building and all of this was unfolding, what was your most stressful moments? I mean, did you ever have anxiety like, it's all done, there's no way, how are we going to climb out of this? You got to get to that point where you see that cash flow and the constant progression.
Yeah.
Did you have those anxiety moments?
Oh my gosh, it would significantly be easier to talk about when or if there was not an anxiety moment. I mean, early on, like I said, I mean, I was grossly undercapitalized, but we were able to keep it moving, and it was. Boy, I mean, even with the help of some family members early on, and but yeah, there was some scary times because now all of a sudden you start taking a trade in on if you got a $50,000 or $60,000 car, and somebody wants to trade their car and $20,000, let's say. Well, so now you could learn really quick the difference between profit and cash flow.
Right. Unlike me, when I would talk to you, and I'd be like, Jeremy, it's just a few grand.
Yeah.
Right. That will work its way into conversations as we progress.
Yes, just a few grand. That's all. It only takes a few grand.
That came out of my mouth.
Yes.
I wouldn't be able to do this podcast or do any of the media work for you that I'm doing and am going to continue to do if I had not worked here for a year.
Yeah, it's definitely given you. So someone coming from the outside and just say, okay, we're going to do a podcast or we're going to do some filming or whatever, and we're going to talk about your business, is grossly different than someone that's been in it for a year and lived, eat, and breathed it in the trenches, talking to the customers, knowing how those things feel. It's an absolute unique perspective.
It is. Well, hence the name.
Right.
Exactly. Right. Fast forward just a bit. Moving in here. This initially, and you and I remember this as it was a Lowe's building.
Correct.
It's gigantic.
Yep.
Right? And how many square feet are we in here?
So our space is about 55,000 square feet here. So we went from 15,000 to 55,000 square feet in one jump.
What did you do? How did you fill this with inventory that quickly?
It was amazing how not difficult that was.
Really?
But let me digress. If we go back to anxiety, I signed the purchase agreement for this place, or the letter of intent, December of 2020, and December of 19.
Oh Jesus, I can see.
And and it's a 7-figure spot, and
right.
Again, it made me pucker about as much as when I made the jump the first time. And then a couple months later, oh, by the way, the world is shutting down, and I'm on the hook for this big building, and right away your head goes to, well, geez, everybody's worried about if they're going to survive this pandemic, or even at that point, what is this thing?
Right.
And so the world just screeching halt, for a while.
Because nobody really knew.
No.
Right? Well, they had, I think the general population was freaked out because nobody knew.
Yeah,
We're
right.
like, we're going to see bodies laying in the street.
Yep.
All of that type of stuff, right? We had no idea.
Yeah, it was like apocalyptic to some people. And, yeah. So then but then after about 2 or 3 weeks, we were still doing remote, now we're doing Zoom meetings with the sales guys, and I remember telling the sales team at that point, I said, guys, now that it's been 2 or 3 weeks and everybody's kind of settled in and they're locked in their homes and they're all this stuff, just be a guy. If it were us, I mean, what do you think people are doing? I said, they're on their computer, they're bored, and they're shopping. They're looking at stuff. Any car guy or gal that's out there, they're home for hours and hours and hours per day. They're online. And I said, you watch. People are going to start, they're going to need to do something.
Right.
What can you do by yourself? You can get in a car and you can drive. And then we saw that come to fruition, and it was kind of off to the races all over again after the world caught up with what was going on. It was amazing to see.
And again, I think that that was a strange time in this country in the sense that there was a lot of different things that happened, including a lot of people wound up in different careers.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's a great example. In 2022, I left my studio on March 13th, 2020. That was the day that everything shut down. It was Friday, right? Yep. And I didn't return back. I had worked from home remotely doing my show live for about a year and a half, and then when they called us back, all of the people and a lot of the positions that were in broadcast were never brought back, because through remote work and the advancement of AI and what was coming, it was never coming back.
Right.
And it's been taken over by platforms like what you and I are using right now.
Right.
YouTube, you have 100,000 YouTube subscribers on your YouTube channel. And I think a big part of that is the videos that Jay and Jason do that a lot of people are very familiar with.
Right. Yeah. And they do a great job with those videos. If you haven't seen them, definitely check them out. But every single car that comes in and out of here gets a full walk around video and everything. And it's nice because pictures. Believe me, I'm the first one to admit and understand that a lot of time pictures can make a car look better than it really is.
Right.
But now when you take that and move it to real time and it's a video and it's slow, it's not a quick 32 seconds, how fast can you walk around the car with the camera on?
Right.
It's 10, 15 minutes of slow and zoomed in and zoomed out. And here's what's great about this car, but the thing that we do too is, hey, here's a couple things that need work. Or, hey, you know what, there's a little scratch here. Or, those sorts of things. And Jay does a fantastic job of pointing out the pluses and minuses of a car. Because let's face it, these are all old cars. And there is not a single one of them that's perfect. I don't care how much money it is.
Right.
There's no such thing as a perfect car.
No. And I would say the first time I saw those being in broadcast, I was like, God, you guys got lightning in a bottle because of the way that he moves through them and as transparent as he is. Mm-hmm. And Jay and Jason are never talking down to anybody. They don't. It's just like, because a lot of people are average enthusiasts like myself.
Sure.
I mean, I came into this business and I quickly found out that everybody in this building and that works for this company, I don't care who they are, knew more about cars than I did. No, I appreciate them and I like them and I like talking to you guys about them, but I didn't really understand the culture. And I spent last year, again, I was also a service technician for about 3 hours before. To be serious, one of the things that you do very well is if somebody's a new hire, you like to have them experience every element of what happens here, right? Whether it's sales, just spending some time with them, techs over in the shop, detail, the guys over in the body shop, what happens in the front office, what happens with titling, what happens with finance, all of these different things to really understand what goes into it. But it goes back to one thing, and that's trust.
Right.
To sell a car like this to a guy that's halfway across the country that can't make it here to look at the car, that is, to me, I was flabbergasted initially that guys would do that.
Yep.
But that's because of the reputation that you've built.
Yeah, the reputation and the disclosure and the transparency. Right. And again, we don't disassemble every car nut and bolt and put it back together again. That's not what that's not what we do. So but we fully understand that there's, like I say, I'm a firm believer there's no such thing as a perfect car. In fact, if someone's trying to sell or trade me their car and they keep calling it perfect, that makes me more and more suspicious because I know dang well there's no such thing as a perfect car. There's always something that can be, and it's kind of the old Harley Davidson joke. If it's not leaking oil, it must be empty, ha ha. Right. And, nobody likes the spots on their floor, but, when I'm 80 some years old, I'll probably be leaking too. I don't know. So it's, just hopefully not in public. I don't know. But anyways, that's a thing.
So when cars come in here, the first thing that happens is they're brought into intake and back, and our technicians get to have a look at them. Right.
Yep. Every car goes through a safety inspection and everything. So we, that doesn't mean that every car is to be made brand new again. That's not the thing. But if there is something especially safety related, whether it's brakes, headlights, tail lights, anything safety related is a first priority. And then, that's a number one priority. But if the AM radio isn't working in a 80-year-old car, maybe that'll just be disclosed that hey, the AM radio didn't turn on or whatever. So there's kind of a hierarchy of importance on the things that go through the shop.
And when individuals, because playing around in sales last year for a bit, people have to understand that some of these vehicles, a lot of them are on consignment. So when the vehicles come in, and our technicians tell them, you'd probably do a little bit better if you spent this money to fix this stuff.
Yep.
And sometimes they do, and they listen. And absolutely encourage everybody to listen to those guys because they know what's important, right?
Yep.
And when our guy in consignment, Dan, talks to them and tells them what they're most likely going to get for the car, listen to him because he knows market value. How many times did I hear this over the past year? And I can completely appreciate this. But you find a car that you love, right? And you do all of the things that you want to it, restore, modify. And then when you're done, you have all the receipts and you look at it and you be like, I have $120,000 into the car. I get it. I appreciate what you've done to it.
Right.
But the odds of finding another individual that wants all of those specific things done to that car and wants to look at the receipts and then it's very small, right?
Yep.
You're going to eat some cash. So if you're going to buy a car and you're going to do those things to it, if it's going to be your car, that's great.
Yeah, build it the way you want. That's the great thing about it.
But if you're going to turn it, you might eat some cash.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a give and take. It's no different than if you build a custom home and you want it just your way, and the next guy that comes along, he may not like it like that,
right.
and it has no value, or he might. That's exactly what I want, and he'll pay up. Just depends on the buyer. So.
Right. It's kind of like buying a home.
Yeah.
It could be completely renovated. You walk in, look at it, and go, "That's not what I want. Let's gut it." And let's have at it again.
Yep.
It's crazy. It is. But again, it's all about passion. Whenever you dig into this culture, the word nostalgia always comes up.
Right.
And that is a fact. I love the cars. Guys love these cars. Girls love these cars. But there's always a bigger story.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's the I've said this for years. I mean, people are like, oh, you must love your job. You got the best job in the world, and yeah, I do. And especially, but the cars, the metal and the fiberglass that are sitting out here are amazing. But the part that really, really, really that I connect with and that I absolutely love is number one. I mean, I look at it that we're preserving history, whether we're preserving and purveying history. And it's not just, it's the history of the car itself, but it's the story behind it.
Right.
This gentleman bought it new and he kept it for 41 years. And, all the story, it's the stories. When you go to the car show and you stand around and just stop and listen to people that are talking at a car show. Very seldom are they standing there talking about what the bore and stroke of their engine is or what their horsepower is. No, they're telling where they found the car and how they were lucky to get it, and it was behind this tree or it was in this barn or this old lady had it, or that's what you hear.
Right.
Or my dad had this car when it was new and now I got. That is the part that is awesome to hear, and to keep that story going is what really gets me going.
The connection to family, and it's not always blood relationship, but the connection to family, because I think that the classic car culture is a family.
Oh, 100%.
These guys get together, and if you've ever been in here on a Saturday morning, people that have had a chance to visit our showroom, we've got car guys down there having coffee on Saturday morning. Just here to talk about cars, right?
Yep.
Visit the showroom, see they know the guys in here.
Yep.
And it's a chance to just come visit and really connect.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about it is, there's obviously all kinds of places people can go and have coffee or have a Coke or whatever. And there's these groups of people, and sometimes it's 2 or 3 or 4 guys. Sometimes it's 20 or 30 guys that come in here, and they choose to sit here and have their coffee and catch up on their car stories and figure out what car show they're going to next. That is what it's all about to me, is that when you can have, and that's why I feel blessed, we can have a facility like this that allows folks to come in and literally be immersed 360 degrees in their world by just sitting here on the showroom, talking cars, seeing the cars, hearing the cars, smelling the fumes, man.
Right.
I mean, when that Chevelle fires up and it belches out,
right.
You know what? It's fantastic. That's what's awesome.
I tell people who see online the photographs, and of course people now that will be watching the podcast, what you see behind us looks great, but every guy that I've had come from across the country, when they walk through those front doors, they were like, wow, this is way more than I even expected. You're getting a little ambiance in the background right now.
Speaking of which, there's a Camaro. Take a deep breath, George. See, that's good stuff right there. It's good stuff. But yeah, the two things I hear that both make me smile, quite frankly, when people come in the front door, if I happen to hang out by the front desk once in a while, and a lot of times people that haven't been here before, they walk in and the first phrase you hear is, holy shit.
Right.
And then the other thing you hear is, oh my God, I love the way it smells in here.
I kid you not, when you walk through the front doors and you take a stroll through this building, it's like taking a bath in testosterone.
That's a good way to put it.
It is. I'm not even kidding. This is the biggest flex on the planet. It is, these cars, right? And if you're into that, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, if you don't walk out of here more puffy-chested than you came in, there's something wrong with you as a guy. Sorry.
You hit that you hit that door in the back and you walk through the tech shop, you're going to need a wheelbarrow to haul your balls back out when you hit the showroom and come down the aisle.
That's right.
I'm telling you, I've learned this. Those guys know cars.
Yep.
Right? And you're fortunate to have a few of them back there that still understand and they know how to work on cars that are not just plug in anymore.
Yeah, it's hard to find a place to plug in the OBD3 on a Model T. It doesn't, the connection just doesn't work.
Right. I'm going to put you on the spot here for just a second, but I have to ask you, along our conversation here, of all the vehicles that you have owned or currently own, I should say, which one holds the most sentiment?
Ooh. Well, first off, it's impossible to pick just one.
You got to, though.
No, I can't.
You do.
Well,
if you had to narrow it down,
the one that holds the most sentiment is probably the one that I've had the longest,
and that's a great reason.
Right. And it's special to me because I bought that car about 3 or 4 months before our producer, Dylan was born, and I've got pictures of him as a baby. It's a 70 Olds 442 with the Ram Air hood, the big scoops, and I got a picture of him as a baby sitting between the scoops. A few years later, I got a picture of him washing the car. He could, old enough to stand up, basically. That one holds the most sentiment. That car is pretty special just because I've had it that long, and I've got memories with my son, from being 6 months old all the way, up till current. We just got it out of the shop here, kind of getting it redone for the first time. So I've had that car 26 years now.
Is that the white one?
That's the white one with the blue stripes, yeah.
Right. Time out.